Hi everyone, Joshua Kirk here with you once again, and now it's time for episode 241 of Album of the Day, in which for today's album review, I'm going to be talking about a pop singer and songwriter whom all of you watching this video probably already know who she is. She doesn't need an introduction at this point. She is the pop singing sensation known as Ariana Grande. So following my previous review, I'm reviewing yet another pop album, and this is Ariana Grande's most recent album, released out of the blue on February 14th of 2019, and the album is called Thank You, Next. And I just have it on CD here, but I did see some vinyl copies of this one. Might have to get my hands on one. But, you know, if you remember watching my 16 favorite albums of the year so far, this album was in that list. This is definitely one of the best pop albums of the year, and in my opinion, Ariana Grande at her best. I'll go into a little more detail about it later. First, let's show you the album cover, which the album cover is similar to the cover of her last album, Sweetener, but it is noticeably less polished, as it is kind of like a sort of faded, sort of wonky photograph of her over a kind of pink background in the actual album cover, and of course a kind of clear parental advisory label right in the middle. And there's the back. There's 12 songs on this album, and it clocks in over 41 minutes, so definitely kind of straightforward pop song sort of structure for all these songs. And there's no lyrics in here, but it does have the liner notes for every song. Some of the production on here handled by Max Martin and ILYA, and as well as Happy Perez, and Pop Wansoland. And then there's the pink CD disc. Yeah, that's the CD packaging for Ariana Grande's new album, Thank You, Next. Now, before this album, I never really been a gigantic Ariana Grande fan. I kind of found her music to be, you know, kind of formulaic and sort of not really anything that's special. But it was, I believe, 2017, when I started to have a little more empathy towards her when I found out about one of her concerts in London where there was a shooting that happened, and there were some teenagers who were like kind of badly injured. So that really crushed her a little bit. So her album Sweetener that she put out in 2018, I hadn't really listened to it, but I did sort of hear that it was her trying to kind of look on the bright side of life. It's sort of, despite all the terrible things that had happened to her. But this album, Thank You Next, is noticeably much more complicated and way more sort of raw emotionally, as it actually is about some relationships of hers that have kind of fallen apart or sort of broken up, and she's sort of reflecting on how she feels kind of heartbroken that, you know, these people had kind of left her, but at the same time she's kind of thankful that she's been with them, and sort of kind of feeling satisfied enough with what they've done, what these people have done for her, even if it does mean she's being a little selfish. One of the relationships that does kind of color this album a little bit is her recent breakup with Saturday Night Live star Pete Davidson, which that would be sort of coloring songs like the opening track, Imagine, which is probably the closest to kind of a true love song on this album, and it is a really beautiful ballad with a very expressive vocal performance from Ariana, along with really nice kind of smooth instrumental that complements her delivery very well, with kind of with the kind of stripped back synthesizers, as well as some really beautiful strings that sweep in towards the end as she hits those really high notes. Excuse me. But it makes total sense that the first song on the album would kind of be a love song, because it's sort of, because as you keep listening to the album, you sort of realize that, this love, that she's sort of wondering, if this love is not the best thing for her, which would kind of be the subject of this next track, Needy, which is sort of her sort of apologizing for saying sorry too much, or sort of not being enough for someone, and she's like sort of saying how, I know this may sound selfish, but it feels so good to be needed by someone, and she portrays that through an incredible incredible singing performance, which I think is one of the biggest selling points of this album. Her voice has only gotten stronger, and I also do really like the kind of somber, soulful instrumental that is put over her delivery. Which I would say that is one thing I really like about this album. This is some of the most diverse production I've ever heard on an Ariana Grande album. We have the song Fake Smile, which has this kind of lo-fi sort of hip-hop kind of instrumental, which it reminds me of that lo-fi hip-hop 24/7 Beats radio that people would listen to like study or relax. I've actually used it while doing homework a little bit, and it's good for sort of relaxing the brain. The song Bloodline features some awesome, persistent horns and a kind of reggae-inspired beat that makes it sound very much kind of like, which gives it that kind of beachside sort of feel. And the song Bad Idea does a good job of meshing trap beats with really sort of emotionally moving strings that come in towards the middle of the song. And the song Seven Rings has actually by far the most controversial instrumental, as this track literally uses the melody from My Favorite Things from the Rodgers and Hammerstein musical, The Sound of Music. And this track certainly is one of the big hits that is on the album, and she really does show her rapping improving on the song too. I mean, she does sort of talk about some of the things that like being rich has sort of given her, but also sort of saying how it kind of brings emptiness a little bit, and how it sort of makes her feel like she'd rather just be, tied up with string instead, which is definitely quite, gut-wrenching to think about. And also the beat on this track is like really fantastic. Fantastic. Anyway, I'll go in a little more sort of in depth about the lyrics on here. Really like the track NASA, which of course is inspired by which of course gets its name from the space organization of the same name, but easily, in my opinion, the best hook on the entire album. It's just so catchy. I can't help but bob my head to it when she says, "I'ma need space, I'ma need space, you know I'm a star in space, I'ma need space, I'ma need space, I'm NASA." I love it so much. And so I think it's clever how she's sort of talking about how, this new love that she's got in her life is kind of like, she's the universe and this other person is sort of like basically just outer space. It's definitely one of the best tracks on the album, and definitely one of the catchiest pop songs that you will hear in 2019. Uh, 19. The song "Fake Smile" is a song about kind of faking like you're all right, but at the same time she's sort of making a decision to save herself and stop faking her feelings and stuff like that. And she's sort of letting them know, I know you feel betrayed a little bit, but I want you to know I'm still grateful for what you've done to me. And if there's a car out there, I would go, but not necessarily that far. And she sort of talks about how she kind of needs a break from being so watched by paparazzi all the time, and stuff like that. Like that. Like I said, really like the beat on here, and it complements the delivery very well. And the sampling that's being used here is really soulful and beautiful. And this is another song where it has a really cool rap verse going on, or rap bridge, I should say. In the song "Bad Idea" is kind of about her deciding to do something that probably isn't the best thing to do, but at the same time she's sort of saying that it is kind of the best thing to do at the same time, kind of spending a little time away from a significant other. And also I will say that the trap breakdown at the end of the song is it's pretty banging, I'll tell you. That by far the most emotionally moving track on here, and definitely my favorite on here, is the song Ghostin, which is a tribute to Mac Miller, the late Mac Miller, who of course passed away last year, and of course his last album, Swimming, came out 1 year ago yesterday. Apparently Mac Miller was one of Ariana's boyfriends, and she's sort of talking about how it always broke his heart when she felt down or got really emotional, and she's sort of letting him know that, I know I know you don't like it when I cry, but I just gotta sort of portray my sympathy for you. He's sort of talking about how it's his arms that she needs this time, and this song definitely gets me pretty choked up when I listen to it. Not only are the lyrics as well as her performance just so moving, but also the instrumental on here, the strings, the strings and the kind of spacey synthesizers are very beautifully mixed together on this track, and it definitely is the kind of thing where, even though I've never been too much of a Mac Miller fan myself, I definitely feel her pain as she sings about how much she sort of misses him. The song. So the title track, "Thank You Next," which is definitely another pretty big hit on this album, is definitely a very clever and even hilarious song in how because she sort of talks about every time a man leaves her life, there's always another one waiting for her, and it's sort of like when you're at the DMV, and sort of like that person at the DMV, he's sort of taking headshots of people, and every time the next one's about to come, he or she always says, "Next." So it definitely is very clever to sort of do that with a relationship a little bit. And I just can't help but laugh when Ariana sings, "I'm so grateful for my ex," in the chorus. Full chorus. Very few singers, and even pop singers, have the guts to say something like that. So to hear her just full on sort of say that in a cathartic way is definitely very refreshing. And I also love the cute bubblegum instrumental on this track too. And following that is the very hilariously titled "Break Up with Your Girlfriend, I'm Bored," which which I think is definitely the best song title on the album, considering I wouldn't say song titles are really the biggest selling point of this album, but the last couple of songs definitely do show a pretty clever concept with their song titles as well as their lyrics, obviously. And also a very sort of sticky hook on this song. Break up with your girlfriend, yeah, yeah, 'cause I'm bored. It definitely is bound to get stuck in your head right from the first listen. And sort of talking about how she kind of looks herself in the mirror and sort of tells herself like, damn, she can't compare. And sort of thinking that this ain't fair. How she's kind of in this relationship because she kind of feels the need to be in a relationship. And sort of asking her significant other, why can't we just play for keeps? And sort of giving a little bit of kind of unusual, pretty gutsy advice to some people. If you're tired of being in a relationship and you feel like it's not really doing much for you, you could just break up with your significant other. Overall, a very strong record. I didn't expect that Ariana would wow me this much, but she really did, and I think that this album, it will be definitely a little more overlooked than her last album, but I definitely think that, its chart positions are definitely giving me hope that, this album will make it into a lot of your end lists in 2019. If there's a couple moments here that I'm not really as fond of, the track In My Head was a little underwhelming in my opinion. The beat just kind of sounded like generic trap to me, and also even her lyrics on here aren't quite as strong, even though it has a pretty catchy hook, and the way that she sings the title of the song in that higher range is really beautiful, I would say. And it does open with a very interesting spoken word sample where someone is talking about how there's a different version of a person that you kind of make in your head, and that you had, and that the only thing you can't really save others. The only person you can really save is yourself. And the track Makeup I thought was a little obnoxious in that it does have some pretty annoying kind of phrases about sort of making love to someone just to make up with them, and also the instrumental definitely was kind of grating also, and also the yeah refrain definitely is something that was pretty forgettable, though strangely gets stuck in my head. That's the kind of thing with pop music that I'm not really in love with. It still has the ability to get stuck in my head, even if I'd rather forget it. But other than that, Thank You Next is really an incredible and very expressive and very emotionally raw and even harrowing pop record. I mean, Ariana really had a lot of layers to peel off on this record, and I think she peeled them off beautifully and really showed her most truest and authentic personality here on this album. So I definitely am feeling a strong 8 on this new Ariana Grande album, Thank You Next. And I'll see you for episode 242.